Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening and enjoying the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast, please share the podcast with at least one friend. Also, rate and leave a comment in iTunes as it truly helps the show. I love interacting with you guys, so please go visit the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast on Facebook and Instagram and connect with me. I really like it when I get the feedback and just see what you guys are actually doing. This is some great news. If you are attending Podcast Movement 18 in Philadelphia in July, make sure you come by and say, "Hey, Emmett, how you doing?" during my Pod Passion seminar.
Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Recently, I reached out to the community of Toastmasters International in my local area, asking for guests because these people are professional speakers in the making. And I wanted to hear their story. One particular gentleman, Dan Westrick, reached out to me and said that Toastmasters International helped to really change his life. So stay tuned. Listen, my guest today is Dan Westrick, fellow Toastmaster. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, Emmett Muckles, and we are here today with a fellow Toastmaster. We are not in the same club, but we're pretty much in the same district because we are in the same geographical area. And Dan has a very interesting story in the fact that how Toastmasters and how his life has changed. So welcome, Dan. How are you doing today?
Well, just recently, my old high school closed down back in 2010, and this past November, we had a chance to do a walkthrough. I was the one that actually coordinated with the new owners of what was Elmhurst High School, and we did a walkthrough for the final two days, and that was like it was pretty much the day after I gave my speech at Dancing with the Fort Wayne Stars. So it was kind of like within those 3 days, it was like very great. And today, one of my old teachers from Elmhurst, Michael Floyd, who is the head of Windsong Pictures, is taping a little bit of Elmhurst Remembrance. So pretty much after I get done here today, I'm going to head down to the History Center and relive my memories of Elmhurst High School, which was the greatest 4 years of my life.
So when I reached out to people for this, for the podcast, you responded and you said that some various things, particularly how Toastmasters, like you were going through some periods in your life and Toastmasters helped you to overcome some things. Can you talk a little bit about your journey with that?
Well, really, my journey in Toastmasters actually started at Elmhurst when I was giving a speech in Michael Floyd's class, and one of the students noticed, how really good I was, and the head coach of the speech team tracked me down in the hallway, and I joined in my senior year. And then a few years later, I joined the IPFW speech team. Wasn't until about 2011 that I met a nice gentleman in the networking circles here in Fort Wayne. His name was Bob Norris. And he was a very nice gentleman. He talked about Toastmasters, and I thought about joining at the time, but there was like a lot going on. It wasn't until his passing that I went to his funeral, and I met with then a former district governor named Keith Hood. And I decided then at that point to finally give Toastmasters a try. And I went to their meeting, felt right in, and joined. And now today I'm the vice president of public relations. And also I've been the sergeant at arms since July 2014. So I've been very busy with Toastmasters.
So how has Toastmasters enhanced your life overall? Because, I have some very succinct points where Toastmasters had benefited me, not in the club arena, but in life itself. For instance, one of the positions that I hold right now with the company, the kicker was that I was a Toastmaster and did a video about Toastmasters, and they were like, wow, this guy can really present. So have you had any moments like that you can actually say, yeah, I'm here because, my involvement or how Toastmasters has helped me to come forward?
Well, probably the biggest thing that Toastmasters helped me with was the speech that I gave at the 2017 Dancing with the Fort Wayne Stars fundraiser for the Carriage. And as a member, I got a chance to share my story with those in the community about my battle with mental illness. And it was trying to shape that story, which was like 11 minutes long, trying to narrow it down to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The Speakers Bureau helped me narrow it from 11 down to 8, but the speech had to be 5. So the meeting prior to the speech, I gave my speech to my Toastmasters club, the Bob Lyman Club. And the neat thing about our club is we have 2 former English teachers, Marlene Purdy, who's our vice president of education, and Mary Hilger, who's our vice president of membership. And Mary was there, and Mary evaluated my speech. And so then afterwards, I talked to Mary and said, hey, Mary, is there any chance you can help me narrow the speech down from 8 to 5? And so what she did was I handed her my transcript of the speech, which was about 5 pages. She took her pencil, she went through it, and she made like a lot of changes. And when I got home, I reviewed the changes, and I thought, yeah, that's good. Yes. So every single change that she thought of, I incorporated into the final presentation. And when the speech was given that night, there was one point where I mentioned Toastmasters. And as I was about ready to segue to my next point, the audience gave me an applause, and I just, stood there for a moment like, this is getting really good. And at the end, I was expecting, because the other times that the other members of the Carriage House have given their stories about how the Carriage House helped with their battle with their mental illness, it's always been, they've always hugged one of the MCs. Then they would go over to Andy Wilson, who's the executive director, give a hug, and then go back to their seat. That was my expectation. So I handed the mic back to one of the MCs. Then I went to Andy Wilson. He was giving me this nice big bear hug. I was about ready to head back to my table when Andy whispered in my ear, you better acknowledge the audience. And then I turned around, and for 30 seconds, they gave me a standing ovation.
That's awesome. So I want to ask you about you bring up mental illness, and in our society, I mean, it's getting better, but for men to say, look, I have a problem and I don't know how to deal with this, or I need some help, historically they just say, suck it up, just tough it out. So how did you navigate that? What was your acknowledgement and saying, I need help and there's help out there? Because sometimes you can just go through a journey and it can go one way or the other, and yours seemed to come forward. So tell us about that.
Well, there's been times where I lived in so many different environments. When I was living with, unfortunately, my biological family, I knew somewhere in me it was like something was wrong, and I was trying to get help and yell for help. But sadly, I never got the help. They would only pray for me, and then the next thing I would be thrown back into that same situation. It wasn't until I got out of that environment and I was in my first marriage, and that was going rocky. It wasn't until my ex-wife's mom noticed that we were arguing outside her trailer, and she came up to me point blank and said, "Do you need the help?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so then I went in, I stayed in for a few days at a behavioral center. I actually ended up having 3 trips to a behavioral center before I finally realized that there was something wrong. And by 2012, I was going to Park Center, and they recommended a therapy called DBT that would work on my behavior. That was back in 2012. It's now 2018, and I'm still working through the issues, but I was a lot different back when this all manifests and now. So that's the journey that I went through. And the other thing is that I was so emotionally abused by my biological family, not just by my biological mother, my 2 biological sisters, but also my biological dad. But the big difference that I wanted to point out is that my dad was also suffering from these same mental illnesses because he served in the armed forces during Vietnam. And he raised a concern because he was the one that wanted to fight for me. He was the one that noticed the problems, and he wanted to get me the help. Like when I was like 5 or 6, I was like in the bathtub and I was afraid I was going to drown because I saw some people on a movie that was like draining on a boat, and he wanted me to get the help, but my biological mother put her foot down and said no. So that really opened my eyes to see that my dad was fighting for me. My biological mother did not. And
yeah, that's hard
just before he passed away, like in 2007, we were sitting down, and I forgave him for what he did to me. But in 2007, he apologized for what he did to me, and we hugged, and forgiving him brought him a lot closer. But in 2007 brought us a lot closer, and so he knew the signs. And when someone else said, let's get you the help, that's how I've been battling with mental illness. That and having a great support circle with my wife, soon to be 3 years, Samantha, her family, my close family, my friends, everybody in Toastmasters, they've been supportive all the way.
So what was your clinical diagnosis? Did you ever get a specific diagnosis of what you are manifesting?
In 2011, I was diagnosed with depression, bipolar, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And that manifests itself from about when I was 2 years old. My parents were involved in a fight, and I had to be rushed to the hospital, and I ended up with minimal brain damage. The story was told that I had a high fever, when in actuality I learned that my biological mother was drinking a lot of alcohol. She picked me up and she threw me on the floor. Whoa. And my head got hit like on the top, and they rushed me to the hospital. And thankfully I'm still here today.
There are a lot of people who are suffering very similar situations, and what's really awesome about you is that you're talking about it, that as a man you're talking about it, and also the fact that someone can listen to this and say, I can get help, it's okay, and that there is a support system for me out there. So I commend you and I thank you for actually sharing your story here on the Billionaire Lifestyle, because that's what this is about. People think life is, to be successful, it's about having the most amount of money, when really it's about having safety and love in your life and, having a place where you can feel that you can be. So I want to thank you for that. As you see this now, do you see things in other people where you can help other people, like, hey, so-and-so, I've been through this. You need some help. Have you come across those situations? I
have. And, I just usually try to share my experience. And I always tell them, you can always give the Carriage House a try. And the other thing that I've been wanting to do, to reach out to these people is I've been encouraging everybody to go on YouTube and listen to my speech. It's just not for those that are just suffering a mental illness. This would be for everybody. Because I think it's very important that if someone sees a sign that says, okay, this person is struggling, we got to get them help. And at least if we can get them at least diagnosed, then we can tell them about a clubhouse or the Carriage House here in Fort Wayne and get them on the road to rebuild their lives and battle mental illness in a healthy way.
So have you also found out, has anyone said or suggested to you things like fitness, the external forces that can help you to build up your resistance to to help you navigate the situation?
Well, my wife and I, we have a pet Chihuahua named Georgie Boy that we adopted back in 2016. And every single morning when I get a chance, I'll try to take him out for a walk. And the other thing that's been helping me is getting back to work. And just recently, I just started my third stint as a crossing guard for the Fort Wayne Police Department Adult School Crossing Guard Program, who is the head coordinator is someone, a great family friend of ours. Her name's Linda York, and I was just coming off of a job where basically, the money was good, but someone was harassing me, and I felt like, in this day and age of the Me Too and the Time's Up movement, I thought, I better quickly distance myself from that and just go on to something else. And my dad was the head coordinator from the mid-'90s until his death in 2009. And so this was a great way to give back to the community. And it is a lot of exercise when you have to cross not only a set of middle school students, but also a set of elementary school students.
Yeah. You just brought up a very interesting subject that I've been really revolving around, which is the Me Too and this movement of this women's movement that is occurring. And one of the things that I can see festering in the background is it's making very good men withdraw from a lot of situations that they might otherwise, be involved in. It could be just an opinion or to help someone. But now you identified with what you said, which is, you see a situation, but you're like, that might be a fire. I mean, I could do some good, but I could say something that could really get me into some hot water here. How do you feel about that? Because you seem like a very caring person, someone who wants to help other people. Has that affected you in any way other than the scenario you were talking about?
It has not affected me personally, and I should point out it was a server that was harassing me at my last job, so that's why I left. Because I tried to address it to management and it just fell on deaf ears. And I pretty much didn't want to get in a situation where this server is going to cost me my job. But other than that, I've not been having any other experiences where, sexual harassment has been involved. And I try to keep myself modest as best as possible, because my wife has defended me so much. I mean, even after I told her about the harassment, she ended up texting the girl saying, "Leave your hands off my man."
And that's really bizarre because I don't know how old you are, but I'm 50, heading toward 52 rapidly here. And that used to be a no-brainer. Like, you would never have heard, or even if it did happen, a man would not even admit to, like, hey, this woman harassed me. But now it's, this women's movement has even the playing field to, like, men are like, hey, I have to be really conscious about what I do. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you have a different consciousness than the population because of what you've been through. So you're probably more sensitive to a lot of things in our world that other people really don't pay attention to. You say that you were married before, that marriage went awry, and now you're married again. So what was the conversation you had with your current wife, explaining your situation? You got to know each other and you said, hey, there's some things I've gone through in my life and I just want to be honest with you? Or did it just kind of evolve over time, or how did that come about?
Actually, we both met at the Carriage house through a mutual friend. And when I met Samantha, she was basically in a very abusive relationship with someone that was treating her like dirt, calling her the B word, and there was like a lot of fighting. And she would come to me and basically point out to these things. And I told her like numerous times to get out of that relationship. It wasn't until I was involved in a transitional employment job through the Carriage house at a church here in Fort Wayne that she came up and I was doing something for the clubhouse and she sat down with me, and this was about the 6th time. and I basically gave her this deal. All right, if you dump him, I will take you out for a cup of coffee and then we'll sit down and we'll chat. Well, she came one day, it was May 7th. She came up to me and she said, I dumped him. But I told him and I put it in writing. He's done. He's not getting the message. So what I did was we walked outside. We walked out to my vehicle. And my thinking is, okay, if he's not going to take it by the word of mouth and he's not going to take it in writing, he's going to get it visually. So I basically took my camera, my phone, I held it up, and I gave her a kiss, and I snapped the picture.
Oh.
And about a few days later, I posted it on Facebook. He was livid, and he was threatening to kick my butt. Now you got to keep in mind, he's half my size, 6 inches shorter. I'm about close to 300 and about nearly 6 foot. So I'm probably thinking, yeah, let him try. But I reported him, and then the next thing He's not been in the clubhouse since. He's been pretty much shunned.
So you went Game of Thrones.
But there was one rule that I had. I was like, I'm not going to take another man's woman.
Yeah.
That's where I drew the line. I'm like, I'll wait until she breaks up the relationship before I, start courting her.
And that's a good man value to have. And this is what's weird. We're just conversating now. So I have some millennial kids, and they have a totally different outtake on that scenario. So I went to this little soiree with one of my daughters, and I see all of her friends from high school till now, and they're all sitting in a circle, and and I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute, you used to go out with that guy over there, but the girl that he's with, you and her were really best friends. She's like, oh yeah, Daddy, that's cool. We just, she's like, this is our circle. She's like, we've looked at everything that you guys have done and all of your rules, and we've seen the ones that don't quite work. So we've reformulated our own. I was like, I never thought of it that way. So, people are always thinking of millennials as like these lazy, but they've looked at our lives and was like, they've been stressed out a lot. So we don't want to be stressed out. But that was a good man rule to put into place. Like, look, babe, I'm not stepping in the middle of your soup. You got to dump that soup out before we start making a whole new batch. So that was pretty awesome. So let me ask you, what is your goals for the future here? Because, as we're sitting here, we're on Skype, and I'm looking at your face, and you have this wonderful glow about you. You're smiling. It's very early in the morning. So this says you have a great lease on life, and you're ready to take it on. So what's your goals coming up now?
Well, we're hoping for a bundle of joy.
Oh.
We've been working on that, and that's, not only the reason we got the dog was not just, to help with our mental illness, but to try to bring a bundle of joy. But I'm very slowly regaining my life back. And what I mean by that is people recognizing me for who I was, this outgoing type A, great personality. And one of the things that people told me, like, hey, we know what you were going through, and we feel sorry for you, but we're great now that you are rebuilding this process. And there's been like a lot of unfinished business that I've already gotten done since 2017. And there is one more piece of unfinished business that I want to take care of, and that is there was in my lowest point, I made one stupid decision, and I have a felony on my record. Well, I'm now in the process of getting that at least reduced, and if I do get it reduced, hopefully this year, then that means I can line up a great paying job so that then we have a great family. So that is in the works now.
I'm glad that you actually brought up this felony charge, because when I moved to Indiana, I saw this thing happening. It would be the dead of winter, and I would be driving in the morning, and I would see someone on a moped with these big tires driving. I couldn't figure it out, and I would constantly see it. So one day I played darts. I play high-level darts, and I asked someone in the bar, because the darts are usually played in bars. I was like, why do people drive these these mopeds in the dead of winter? I was like, because for the price of that moped, you probably could have bought a car. And they said they probably have they probably have a felony because of a drinking charge or moving violation charge. And I was like, a felony because of that? He's like, yeah, all you need is like 2 of them, and it's really expensive. But that's not the point I'm trying to drive home, is that you can make a decision in your life when you're young, or you're just not in the right frame of mind, you're emotional, something happens and you, as they say, cop a felony. And it really alters your life, because one of the things in America where you can lose your freedom, even though you're free, is to have a felony, because that means that it restricts you on where you can live. It restricts you on where you can work. It restricts you on how you move about the world. So I commend you for really trying to eradicate that or reduce that so that you can bolster your family. So you're on the right path, my man. Awesome. You are living that billionaire lifestyle. You're going for the glory of living versus being a victim of circumstance. So thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle, sharing your story. And here's the most important part. And I want you to do this. So I need you to look at me, because this is very important as we're coming to the end of the show. When you get in the shower, right? You go take a shower. I want you to get out that shower butt booty naked. And I want you to just dry off. And then I want you to go over to the mirror, okay? This is really important. And I want you to wipe the steam off the mirror. And just sit and look at the glory of you. All 300 pounds of you, as beautiful as you are. And I want you to appreciate that beauty, because this is what I say at the end of every show, and it really hits home. And another thing, I want you to look at a galaxy. And the galaxy is right in your grasp. So the secondary thing you're going to do in that mirror is you're going to get really close, probably about 3 to 6 inches away, and you're going to open your eyes wide. And I want you to look in your own eyeball, because you're going to see a galaxy that's in your head. It's your iris, to know how special you are. And then go about your day with a revitalized sense of joy. So I want to thank you so much. thank you, Dan, for being on the show.
Hey, I thank you so very much. And like I said, if I want to leave a message of my own for those that are battling mental illness, if you need to help, try to get help. And if you can do it, join a clubhouse and get yourself a good support circle of friends that can help you, because negativity can only bring you down. And if you surround people that are very positive and look forward to your own interests, then that makes your life a lot better.
Awesome.
And I do thank you for allowing me.
No problem. I have to ask you for some clarification. When you say join a clubhouse, what kind of clubhouse are you talking about specifically?
The club, when I refer to a clubhouse, it's a place where people that have a mental illness can go to rebuild their lives. There's many programs that the clubhouse helps with. They may help with education, trying to get housing, trying to get benefits, and the most important that's been stressed by so many people is getting back to work. And so if there's like a clubhouse near you, go online, search for Clubhouse International. There's around about 300-400 clubhouses around the world. There's I think about 4 or 5 here in the state of Indiana. There's one here in Portland called the Carriage House. You can always call them and, get in. They do offer tours, and if you do like it, you just come back 3 more times in 90 days, then you become a member, and it is such a great program.
Thank you. You've given us some great information. So have a blessed day, my man, and to all of you, peace.